Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. After the explosion, black shadows emerged from the ground. These people were clad entirely in black and were extremely agile. When they appeared, they started a killing spree in all four directions. Looking from the sky, one would discover that a hole about 10 meters wide had appeared at the location of each of the explosions. These men in black emerged from these holes. Not only were they prepared, but they were also very powerful. Immediately, they turned the place into a slaughterhouse. While Hui Yuhao hid underneath his table, his spiritual detection was still active. He never expected that a place like the illustrious Virtue Hall, which possessed such tight security and defenses, would be attacked. The power of these people was beyond his imagination. Among them, none seemed to be below the level of a soul sage. The moment they appeared, they revealed their martial soul true bodies and started a wild massacre. It would be hard to assemble a team like this, even in Shrek Academy. Quickly, Hui Yuhao discovered something. Because these men in black were so powerful, they inadvertently revealed their weaknesses. When Hui Yuhao triangulated his spiritual detection on the right shoulder of one of the men in black, the man's power suddenly increased 10 times. He was then able to pulverize a grade 5 soul engineer, who was just about to fire a soul tool at him. At this moment, Hui Yuhao understood their origins. Body sect. They were from the body sect. However, why would they suddenly attacking the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy? And the illustrious Virtue Hall? Were they mad? However, regardless of what he thought right now, there was no way he could leave. These people from the body sect did not care about anything else. The moment they entered, they started their killing spree without a second thought. After a short while, hundreds of soul engineers lay in pools of blood on the floor. While the soul engineers had started to counterattack, the people from the body sect were more powerful than they had expected. Among them, there were at least 10 of them with the power of a titled Doluo. How could their soul tools resist? Furthermore, all these people wanted to do was destroy. In their hands, the precious tables were ripped apart like scrap. After a short while, the cost of the damage they had done was unthinkable. However, Hui Yuhao took solace in the knowledge that he Kaitu and teacher Fan Yu were both not there. They had followed a bunch of students from the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy out to test their soul tools. If not, he would not be able to just hide there. However, he could not do this forever. Who knew when men from body sect would come over to his table? While Hui Yuhao was confident in his own abilities, his opponents were soul sages. A soul sage from the body sect was more powerful than a soul sage from other places. He could not beat them. Damn it. If they came, how could I escape? As he thought about that, Hui Yuhao's two hands had already turned into the Ice Empress pincers. His right hand released his dark golden terror claw, as he tapped the floor underneath him forcefully. While the floor was covered with a metal layer about 17 centimeters thick, it was soon torn apart by his sharp dark golden terror claw. Using both of his hands, he dug furiously at the ground underneath him. Soon, he made an indent. Hui Yuhao then used his strength to tilt his table. Coordinating with his dark golden terror claw, the table soon fell over flat on the ground, covering the indent in the ground that he had dug. Unless someone flipped this table over, they would be unable to discover his presence. At this moment, a figure dashed through the sky and was soon suspended in mid-air. Pursued by countless rays of purple light, his boy shone like an illusory shadow. However, not a single ray of purple could land on him. Then, the domed ceiling turned green. Under the terrifying green light, all of the soul tools on the domed ceiling melted. Go. The figure stabilized himself in mid-air and waved his hands. Instantly, the green liquid started to fly in the direction of the soul engineers. We won't be poisoned, how dare you? A voice resounded. A film of red light suddenly started to spread as it blocked the green liquid. From the depths of the hall, dozens of figures zoomed out. Leading them was Jing Hongchen. When Jing Hongchen saw the carnage underneath him, his eyes almost popped out of his head in rage. Since the establishment of the illustrious Virtue Hall, it had never experienced carnage like this before. Everywhere he looked, he could see the corpses of soul engineers. On a battlefield, he was confident in his ability to destroy the body sect invaders with his soul engineers from the illustrious Virtue Hall. However, their attack came too suddenly. Furthermore, the illustrious Virtue Hall was a few hundred meters underground. Not only did outsiders not know of its location, but they shouldn't even know how to penetrate it. Who could have thought that the body sect would choose the dumbest, but most effective, way? They dug a tunnel from an unknown location, and then attacked its most vulnerable spot, and broke through its defenses. The black-robed man in mid-air appeared to not have heard Jing Hongchen's words as he said coldly, "Kill." The black-robed man, who had just destroyed a large amount Soul Tools, was naturally the leader of the body sect, Dubuzi. However, since he had brought the black-robed men here, he would not reveal his identity, even if everyone knew who he was. Jing Hongchen also roared in rage. "Spare no one." As he said that, a powerful red light shot out from his body. Behind him, a metallic light that resembled red lotuses spun rapidly and came together. In a split second, thousands of slender, red rods were aimed at the sky. A red helmet appeared on Jing Hongchen's head, a metallic mask covered his face, and countless rays of red light flew rapidly towards the leader of the body sect. The other powerful members of the illustrious Virtue Hall, who accompanied Jing Hongchen, revealed their soul tools as well. They attacked the body sect vigorously as both sides clashed head-on. Instantly, soul power brimmed in the underground space, rocking it with the sounds of explosions. Hu Yuhao felt his heart thumping rapidly in his chest. This was the first time he had seen something like this. Why did the body sect attack the illustrious Virtue Hall so brazenly? Could it be for the benefit of the 3 countries on the Doluo continent? Impossible. According to what teacher had said, the body sect only cared about its own interests. Everything it did was for its own interests. Right now, they had made themselves enemies of the illustrious Virtue Hall. What benefits could they reap? Hu Yuhao racked his brain, but he couldn't think a reason for it. All he cared about right now was his own safety. 3 rays of light from Soul Tools had already landed on Hu Yuhao's table. Every single one of them was capable of dissolving metal, leaving the table heavily damaged. Once the table was completely destroyed, he would have nowhere to hide. In a fight between so many powerful cultivators, if he was exposed he would be torn to pieces. What could he do? Hu Yuhao didn't know. Right now, all he could do was dig deeper into the ground beneath him and fully expand his spiritual detection, praying that he would remain safe from the clashes above. However, the battles between soul powers was too powerful, already causing a strong soul power storm. Under these circumstances, his spiritual power would be torn to shreds when exploring. After he tried unsuccessfully to probe the outside world with his spiritual power, resulting in him bleeding from the mouth and nose, he gave up. He wouldn't die here, that would be too frustrating. It would be better for him to go out. However, if he did go out, which side should he help? Indeed, just as he'd predicted, there was a tunnel about 5 meters long underneath him. The tunnel was extremely narrow, and only one person could crawl through it at any one time. Evidently, it was new. Excellent, if I can enter this tunnel, then I won't be attacked. Furthermore, the air circulation in this tunnel should be okay. Breathing won't be a problem. Happily, Hu Yuhao used all his strength to continue digging underneath him. Boom. His table was struck by a soul cannon shell, sending it flying into the air. Some shattered metal pieces were blocked by Hu Yuhao's Ice Empress armor. By now, he'd already dug 2 meters, and he extended his body. His left hand using an Ice Empress pincer, and his right hand had the dark golden terror claw. Using every ounce of his strength, he smashed forward, and finally breached into the tunnel. Hu Yuhao didn't delay, not even for a second. He wriggled, and dropped into the tunnel. Indeed, when he dropped into it, he felt the previous sense of danger dropping drastically. Hu Yuhao sighed in relief. However, he couldn't stay here for long. Above him, a battle raged. What if it caused the tunnel to collapse? Once he got his bearings, he discovered that this tunnel stretched far into the depths of the illustrious Virtue Hall. Naturally, there would be more powerful illustrious Virtue Hall soul engineers there. It would probably be safer. Unfortunately, this tunnel was not tall enough, and he could only advance by crawling forward. First, he had to leave the danger zone. Anything else was of secondary importance. When he entered the depths of the tunnel, the sounds of the explosions outside began to soften. Hu Yuhao sighed in relief. He'd managed to dodge this bullet. In the end, he still did not know who would be crowned victor. This place was a few hundred meters deep. Regardless who it was, they wouldn't use their most powerful attacks. If the entire underground facility collapsed, even a title Doluo won't be able to carry the weight of a few hundred meters of earth. Hu Yuhao savagely thought, that the best outcome would be for both sides to be severely injured in this battle. When he advanced forward, he felt the air clearing up. Could it be an exit? The moment he thought about the word exit, he tightened up. Now he realized that this tunnel was evidently not dug by the illustrious Virtue Hall. Could it be that the attack of the body sect was only a diversion to capture Jing Hongchen's attention? Could their true target actually be through this tunnel, which he had coincidentally ventured into? Were they after some precious soul tool from the illustrious Virtue Hall? Or? Hui Yuhao trembled. He thought of a possibility, which was also one of his objectives in this expedition. Even though it seemed impossible to him, he had to consider it. If the objectives of body sect were identical to his own, then everything would be easier to explain. Embryo, the 100,000-year soul beast embryo. They were after that. When he thought about the 3 red 100,000-year soul rings around Dubuzi, everything became clear to Hui Yuhao. He personally witnessed the highlight of the Star Luo auction held in Star Luo City being awarded to the highest bidder. Even Dubuzi, who had 300,000-year soul rings, may not be able to reach the level of a rank 99 ultimate Doluo. Of course, at his level, there were some negative consequences attached with increasing his power using soul rings. Which was why he did not dare to face off against Elder Mu. What bravery, body sect! They dared to rob the illustrious Virtue Hall. Only after they made their preparations, of course. After all, they were only a sect, and not a whole country. If the illustrious Virtue Hall wanted revenge, they still had to find them first. Furthermore, they took steps to conceal their identities, meaning that no one could say for sure they were responsible. After he had discovered their goal, what should he do? Hui Yuhao was put in a difficult spot, because the 100,000-year soul beast embryo was part of the reason for his journey too. Elder Mu had spoken with him about this, and because Hui Yuhao himself had his spiritual detection and imitation, Elder Mu told him that if he was given the chance, he should make a go for it. Of course, the precondition was that he had to ensure his own safety. Even if he were discovered, his opponents would not hurt him. At most, they would send him back. When Hui Yuhao came to the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy, he abandoned this idea. The defenses of the illustrious Virtue Hall were tight, and it was equipped with the latest and most powerful soul tools. It was impossible for him to enter undetected. Perhaps he could sneak in easily, but he could not get rid of the defenses. Who could predict the arrival of the body sect? They unleashed a vigorous attack, and then sent someone to sneak in and steal it. This plan was surely formulated over a long time. Evidently, the body sect was not confident of destroying the illustrious Virtue Hall in one blow. Attacking them head-on like this was only a diversion. Their true objective was past this tunnel. So, should he head over, or not? Hui Yuhao knew that whoever the body sect sent to infiltrate the illustrious Virtue Hall must be someone that Dubuzi viewed as extremely important and powerful. Someone he couldn't beat easily. However, would Hui Yuhao just abandon it so easily? This was a rare chance. Faced with the body sect's powerhouse, his only advantage was his familiarity with soul tools. Time waited for no man. Without giving much thought to it, Hui Yuhao decided no. Compared to the 100,000-year soul beast embryo, his life was far more important. Furthermore, he already had a 1,000,000-year soul ring and a 100,000-year soul ring. He shouldn't be too greedy, as it would lead to catastrophic consequences. Could he betray the trust of Brother Skydream, the Ice Empress, and Electrolux? When he thought through it, Hui Yuhao calmed down quickly. But he still couldn't allow the body sect to get the 100,000-year soul beast embryo. If it remained here, he at least had a chance to get it. If the body sect took it, he would have no such chance. He had to find a way to contact the Hallmaster. The underground base underneath the illustrious Virtue Hall. A fierce explosion and tremors forced both sides to stop. All of them realized that if the place collapsed, no one would make it out alive. Dubuzi, why? Jing Hongchen asked through gritted teeth. Suddenly, he sensed something. Immediately, he trembled in rage as he cursed in anger, "Bastard, you dare to." As he said that, he ran toward the interior of the illustrious Virtue Hall. He suddenly recalled where exactly the large explosion came from. However, how could the body sect members, who were so close to their goal, allow him to interfere? A terrifying green storm descended from the sky. Dubuzi, who did not fear tapping into his origin soul power, vanished. A countless number of terrifying figures flew towards the powerful members of illustrious Virtue Hall. They evidently wanted to kill Jing Hongchen. Hence, they disregarded the attacks of the other Soul Engineers. Helpless, Jing Hongchen could only retaliate. With his grade 9 Soul Tool, his power matched that of Dubuzi, who was likely the only transcendent Doluo on the continent. With rank 99 Soul Power, if he did not fear the collapse of this underground world, more than 1/3 of the Soul Engineers would have already perished. The battle resumed as both sides resumed their intense fight. Yet, the number of casualties did not increase much. After all, they did not fight with all their strength, but instead focused on defending. Dubuzi's aim was to pin down the powerful Soul Engineers of illustrious Virtue Hall, and create a chance for his people. Hu Yuhao left the tunnel, and went into another one. Soul Tool lights flashed from both sides of the tunnel, indicating that the structure was unstable. This should be the interior part of illustrious Virtue Hall. However, where was the person who came in before him? As Hu Yuhao ascended, he cloaked himself in a layer of fog. After some deliberation, he also changed his form. Hidden in the fog, he put on a face mask to make himself look ordinary. Then, using imitation, he transformed into Dubuzi. One must say that his control over his spiritual power was extremely precise. Not only did his stature and appearance resemble Dubuzi, but he even conjured a black robe that looked like the one Dubuzi was wearing. In short, he looked like Dubuzi without his veil. His heart pounded quickly. However, since he was there was no chance for escape. As he thought, he slowed his steps and expanded his spiritual detection, probing out in front of him. After he walked forward a bit longer, he felt a tug in his heart. He quickly entered a tunnel to his left, where a metallic black door stood open. Inside it was an extremely spacious lab. Right now, the lab was completely empty. From the energy he sensed, he could tell that many of the powerful illustrious Virtue Hall members had rushed out from here. Since he was here, Hu Yuhao had to explore. He dispelled the fog around him and put on a veil. He then entered the vast lab. The lab was indeed large, round and at least 100 meters wide and 30 meters high. When Hu Yuhao entered, a huge object immediately caught his attention. It was a huge man made out of steel. It was at least 15 meters tall, and its huge frame was almost completely made of steel. From its appearance, it looked simple, but the frame of its body was complete. Its chest was propped open, and inside there was a chair-like object. Hu Yuhao did not just look at it with his eyes. He even made a sweep of it with his spiritual detection. After he swept it, he retreated quickly, and almost fell down. He found thousands of formation arrays on the metallic man's body. He had almost never felt such precise formation arrays before. Even more terrifying, he could sense a horrifying power in the body of the metallic man. This belonged to the metal itself. Yet, how could he fully understand it in such a short time? What exactly is it? After rushing out of the tunnel, Hu Yuhao took in a deep breath, and his heart started to beat faster and faster. The booms outside seemed to have become softer. The battle between the two parties appeared to have dropped in intensity. What should he do? Should he still take that tunnel? He had no choice. Even if he had to dig after entering the tunnel, he still had a slim chance. With the Ice Empress pincer and dark golden terror claws, he was capable of digging another tunnel. If he managed to dig until he reached the rest of the tunnels in the underground base that the body sect members had gone into, he could escape. Hu Yuhao sped up as he considered his options. He rushed towards the opening of the tunnel that he had entered earlier. At this point, a black figure flashed past with an alarming speed. "Who's there?" the other party shouted. An intense purplish light shone, and a frightening, suppressive force caused Hu Yuhao to nearly suffocate. 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 4 black soul rings appeared on the person's body. He was a soul Doluor with a pair of thick arms. At this moment, his arms had already turned into a pair of large pincers. "Shut up." Hu Yuhao's voice was deep and frail. He also removed the veil from his face. The other party was stunned upon seeing the old and frail face that Hu Yuhao had created for himself with his imitation, and knelt down on one knee. "Greetings, Sectmaster." Hu Yuhao was very nervous now. He knew that he had imitated the right person. The other party's martial soul and dress revealed his identity as a warrior of the body sect. He was a soul Doluor ranked expert, who possessed a body soul. His arms were his body soul. How powerful was he? Did he dig the tunnel with his arms? "Get your hands on it." Hu Yuhao asked him. "Yes, we did." The soul Doluor appeared very excited. He presented something to Hu Yuhao with both hands. It was a white tray. There was a wooden ladle on it with hundreds of gemstones of all colors. A ball of white gas was trembling slightly on this wooden ladle. Hui Yuhao had last seen this item at the Starlight auction place. How could he forget this top-ranked finale item? Although he didn't know how the other party got their hands on it, he was certain that it was a 100,000-year soul beast embryo. The God-sealing altar was definitely real. Hui Yuhao took in a deep breath and tried to calm down. He snatched the God-sealing altar from the other party. He set it in front of him and took a good look at it before nodding and saying, "Not bad, you've contributed greatly this time. You'll be greatly rewarded when we return. Go on, leave quickly." As he spoke, he put the God-sealing altar away in his own storage-type soul tool. However, he immediately realized that he'd failed. His storage-type soul tool couldn't contain the God-sealing altar. Hui Yuhao almost slapped himself. How could he forget this? If the classes of soul tools were too far apart, the storage-type soul tool wouldn't be able to contain a higher-class soul tool. At this point, reverberating booms could be heard from the outside again. The man in black in front of Hui Yuhao stood up quickly, looking very shocked. He pointed his finger at Hui Yuhao and asked, You're not the sect master." Hui Yuhao furrowed his brow. "What gibberish are you spouting?" The man in black turned fierce. "I sense the sect master's aura on the outside. You're an imitation. Go and die." He also unleashed the Ice Empress armor, though the diamond crystals didn't release any glow under the disguise of his imitation. As he unleashed both his defensive capabilities, he used the 100,000-year soul embryo to receive the other party's frightening fists. However, the other party didn't seem to take any heed as he continued to reach his hand over. 100,000-year soul ring and soul bone were a treasure to every soul master. This soul Doluor never expected that someone would allow this treasure to be damaged after obtaining it. He reckoned that Hui Yuhao's cultivation must be of a certain standard, or Hui Yuhao wouldn't have dared to trick him. That's why he unleashed his entire strength with this punch. It was almost impossible to retract his fist. However, the 100,000-year soul beast embryo was their main target. Whether it was the 100 million gold coin reward, the soul beast embryo itself, or the Class 9 God-sealing altar that contained it, they were all valuable treasures. However, he was anxious because Hui Yuhao didn't seem to care. His left hand reached for his right hand at this moment rather than grabbing towards Hui Yuhao. The body sect had expended a lot of effort for this plan. They had spent almost 2 years on their advanced preparations. They had also done their own research on the God-sealing altar. The God-sealing altar could seal life within it. However, the target must lose all ability to struggle before it could be sealed. Once the target was sealed, even a titled Doluor couldn't break out. It was normally used to seal some powerful soul beasts that had lost their fighting strength, but it was used, if rarely, on soul masters. However, the God-sealing altar wasn't completely flawless. The seal was sustained by drawing from the trapped person's soul power. That's why it was very powerful internally, but was unable to exert any significant external defensive strength. A certain amount of force could cause this Class 9 soul tool to crack. That was why the God-sealing altar was also known to be soft on the outside, but tough on the inside. Hui Yuhao naturally had some understanding of the God-sealing altar. That was why he made such a choice. After obtaining the huge experimental metallic man, he just wanted to leave this place safely. He wasn't that interested in the 100,000-year soul beast embryo, either. He couldn't absorb a 100,000-year soul ring with his current abilities. Furthermore, he didn't even know what this soul beast's type was. That was why he'd rather release this soul beast, which also happened to be the only way he could resist the other party's attack. Otherwise, even Hongchen's blessing couldn't withstand the other party's attack, considering the gap in their cultivations. Survival was his only goal now. The soul Doluor, who was chosen to carry out this critical task, was indeed very powerful. He still managed to achieve his goal even though he changed his move at the last moment. His left hand managed to grab hold of his right hand. His body stiffened up, and his right fist stopped right in front of the God-sealing altar. However, it had taken all of his energy to do this. After all, he had completely unleashed his right fist. He knew that Hui Yuhao would exploit this opportunity to attack him, but he was fairly confident of his own defensive strength. However, something unexpected happened. Hui Yuhao attacked him, but he used the God-sealing altar to attack him. Hui Yuhao could sense where the other party's fist had stopped using his spiritual detection. He smashed the God-sealing altar towards the other party's fist. He used all his strength this time, and the strength of the Ice Empress pincer was completely unleashed. At this point, a surprised voice sounded in Hu Hao's mind, it's actually her. How is this possible? How is this possible? A refreshing gust of air was released from the Ice Jade Empress Scorpion's skeleton to tackle the chill. Hu Hao's frozen blood started to circulate normally once again. The ultimate ice continued to protect Hu Hao's body during this chill, and kept him from being completely frozen. However, Hu Hao could sense that even the ultimate ice seemed inferior to the chill that was sweeping over him. He had always thought that his ultimate ice brought about the most extreme chill, but this sudden change caused his understanding to be revised. When he reopened his eyes, he was shocked by what he saw. The entire tunnel had become narrower. There was now a layer of crystalline ice about a foot thick covering the inside of the tunnel. The Sol Doluor had been turned into an ice sculpture. He was motionless as he stood in front of Hu Hao. The god-sealing altar was also frozen after it dropped to the ground. The tunnel had turned completely dark now. The soul tools that were used to increase visibility had lost their effect. If not for Hu Hao's spirit eyes, he wouldn't be able to see anything. Ice Empress, what's going on? What did you mean just now? The shocked voice he had heard had come from the Ice Empress. The Ice Empress sounded very appalled. That's the aura of the Snow Empress, Snow Empress. Hu Hao's body jerked, and he almost lost his voice. Are you saying that the 100,000-year soul beast embryo sealed within the god-sealing altar belongs to the leader of the three heavenly kings of the extreme north, the Snow Empress, who also happens to be ranked third among the 10 great savage beasts? That's right. It's the Snow Empress aura. The Ice Empress sounded more certain now. In the continent, only the Snow Empress possesses an aura even chillier than mine. That voice also belonged to the Snow Empress. I'm certain that it's the Snow Empress. Hu Hao couldn't believe it as he asked, but is that even possible? Isn't the Snow Empress cultivation close to 700,000 years? If a soul beast wants to turn into a human, it has to make a choice at the 100,000-year mark. Since the Snow Empress has already existed for 700,000 years, how can she be reborn into a human? Could it be someone else from the same species? The Ice Empress replied, it's impossible. The Snow Empress is special. She's an ice sky snow lady that was given life after receiving the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. How can a normal snow lady be more powerful than me? It's definitely the Snow Empress. Although I don't know how she did it, I'm certain that it's her. The Sky Dream Iceworm's voice sounded, whether it is or it isn't the Snow Empress, we have to leave this place quickly. This is not the time to consider it. Hu Hao was jolted to his senses. Yes. He wasn't out of danger yet. He quickly walked towards the Sol Doluor. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and he said in a low voice, I'm sorry. As he spoke, he stretched out his right index finger, and his dark golden terraclaw pierced through the ice, puncturing the Sol Doluor's forehead. There was still a possibility of revival after being frozen under extreme conditions. However, Hu Hao wouldn't survive if he remained here and was captured by illustrious Virtue Hall. It might even reveal his tracks. It wasn't time for him to be merciful right now. He bent over and picked up the damaged god-sealing altar, putting it away in his storage-type soul tool. Although it was damaged, it was still a Class 9 soul tool. It was still extremely valuable in terms of research and materials. The fighting noises outside abruptly became even louder. Hu Hao hesitated for a moment before returning to the previous tunnel. The entire underground base had already been reduced to a huge mess. Less than a fifth of the laboratory desks were in good condition. The losses illustrious Virtue Hall had suffered couldn't just be measured in terms of money. Jing Hongchen's expression was very pale. Streaks of red light were continually being released from his body. Dubuzi remained in mid-air. However, their targets were no longer each other. Rather, it was the swaying and flashing white figure in the air. Streaks and streams of frozen white gas were being released from this figure. However, Dubuzi and Jing Hongchen's dominant attacks prevented this white gas from spreading. Besides Dubuzi and Jing Hongchen, the rest of the people from both sides had stopped fighting at this point. They watched this fight between the three powerful parties, as they clearly separated into two different sides. Hu Hao managed to catch a clear glimpse of the white figure. It was a young girl that seemed to be only 2 or 3 years old. Her chubby body was covered in a snow-white cotton skirt. She roared viciously and tried to break out of the encirclement. Many people from the body sect and illustrious virtue hall had already turned into ice sculptures, obviously her doing. Is that really the Snow Empress? Hui Yuhao asked the Ice Empress. The Ice Empress replied, it should be. After the Snow Empress was reborn as a human, she should have turned into a human embryo. She must be trying to give up her rebirth and return to her original form. However, she doesn't seem to possess even a third of her normal strength. Otherwise, these humans wouldn't be able to stop her no matter how strong they were. Hui Yuhao furrowed his brow and said, it's normal for her powers to fall after being trapped in the God-sealing altar for so long. Furthermore, she has experienced a rebirth into a human. No, I have to help her. The Ice Empress' determination shocked Hui Yuhao. Hui Yuhao hurriedly said, Ice Empress, don't be reckless. The situation is very messy now. How can we help her? The Ice Empress replied, the Snow Empress saved me before. Now that she's in trouble, I have to help her. Don't worry, I have my own way. I won't endanger you. Don't move. I'll communicate with her. The Ice Empress was slowly released, and the golden red, 400,000-year soul ring appeared on Hui Yuhao's body. Imitation concealed its light. A huge image of the Ice Jade Empress Scorpion slowly surfaced on Hui Yuhao's back. If he stripped, this image would seem to be alive. The image moved slightly on his back, and a weird light shot out from the Ice Empress' crystal yellow eyes. A streak of strange aura was also exuded. Part 1 end here.